ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Tech Showdown. I'm representing Papa Bless. It's also really cold here today. This is my co-host Steady, and today we're doing a gaming mouse review. And it's of this guy right here, the Roccat Kone Aimo. So this was the mouse I used when I was over in Taiwan and in Hong Kong. So I've been using this actually for 3 weeks. Now I have cleaned it a little bit, but I didn't go too overboard because I wanted you guys to see what it looks like after quite a few weeks of use, rather than just cleaning it up and making it look like it was brand new again, because this is more likely what it's going to turn into after you start using it for quite a few weeks. And let's start there then with the looks of it. So looks wise, it's a decent looking gaming mouse, but it's very gamery. Like, it's not very subtle at all. If you were trying to use this in an office or something, people would think you're super hardcore. But it's not bad looking. Now, colors wise, I've got it in the black, but you can get it in gray and white. It does have RGB lighting, which does liven it up a bit, and I think it looks good. But yeah, overall, I would say it's good looking, but it's not original, it's not special, and it's definitely not subtle. But let's move over to comfort then, because that's much more important. And comfort-wise, it does a good job. Although it's a bit of a mixed bag, but don't let that scare you off. Size-wise, this is a pretty big gaming mouse. There's no two ways about it. It's got a big size, but I do have large hands, so that meant it feels quite good to me. Usually I struggle with the smaller gaming mice because my hand just envelops them. Where this was a good size for me, but even though I have large hands, it was maybe still a little bit big for me. But yeah, I think you'll get used to it over time, and I certainly got used to it after about a week or so. Now, it has all this contouring and stuff, which is good. It means your hand fits into it nicely. Like, it really sort of fits to it nicely, and it's comfortable to use for hours on end. The one thing that's wrong is that they didn't put any sort of rubber. We often see rubber or other grippy materials put on the sides. This is to give them grip. This just has plastic, and it means after a while, if you're using it, especially if you're somewhere hot, like in Taiwan or Hong Kong, not in cold old New Zealand, your hand can get sweaty and then it gets really slippery to use. Now, it's not so much of an issue for me because I don't tend to lift the mouse off at all. But if you're a person that lifts off a lot with their gaming mouse, then I think you might have an issue with it. It's not the end of the world, but it's just something they really need to refine. And that's about the only big letdown as far as comfort goes. It's not really a comfort thing, it's more like a control thing, but you get what I mean. Yeah, it's something they do really need to refine going forward. But let's talk about the sensor then. And this is something they don't need to refine at all, I don't think, because it's absolutely fantastic. It runs the Pixart Ally optical sensor, which goes up to 12,000 dpi. Now, I use this on a variety of surfaces. Lots of different things. As you can see, I've cleaned it a little bit, but you can see it has been used. And it was fantastic. I had no issues with it whatsoever. It was very, very good for my editing. I did a bit of light gaming over there, but I was pretty busy, so I couldn't do that much. But it was very, very good. And it has a lot of adjustment too, which I always like to see. So as far as the sensor goes, for gaming, for anything like that, the accuracy is very solid with it. And I had no issues with it at all. So this is a very good sensor in this gaming mouse. So let's go over and talk about the buttons and the scroll wheel. So the left and right click are good. They're very crisp, although they have a bit more travel than average, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The scroll wheel is also above average, although it's slightly more stiff than I'm used to, but not overly stiff like some of them do. They go way too overboard with it, so it's definitely not a bad thing. The DPI buttons are nicely out of the way, which is something I always look for. And the 3 side buttons in there, as they call it, tri-button, thumb zone, are really big, and they have heaps of travel, which is good for, so you don't accidentally click them, but it just might be a bit too much for some people. The lower button is called an easy shift button, which is basically a duplicator, and I'm not sure how many people would actually use it. That's my issue. I'm not sure. I mean, some people will, but yeah. And also, I tended to hit it by accident, so it could be an issue for some people out there. That was something I only did at the very start. After I got used to it, it stopped happening as much, but it's still something that happened. So overall, the buttons and the scroll wheel are good, except for these 3 buttons on the side. I feel like in conjunction with it being kind of slippery, you can accidentally hit some of them. I feel like they added more travel to the side buttons to offset the fact that you can accidentally hit them because of how slippery it is, which is a kind of funny thing to do. That I don't know that for a fact. That's just what I'm guessing that could have happened, or it might have accidentally turned out that way. But yeah, that's also another thing. So overall, it's okay, but I don't particularly use side buttons to begin with, so it wasn't really a big deal to me. So let's talk about the software. So the software is Roccat Swarm software, and it's not very clean looking. It looks kind of basic, but it does what it needs to do. And that's the main thing anyway. So even though it doesn't look that pretty, it does a good job. It's easy to use, very straightforward. You can adjust everything with the sensor, the double click speed, lift off, all that stuff. There's not that many lighting features, but you know how I feel about RGB, and most of you guys feel the same. So it won't really bother you too much, but it would be one of those good things that they could maybe add a few more features in the future. But overall, it's a good software. It just doesn't look quite as clean or crisp as some of the other ones out there. But in terms of function, it's just fine. Which brings us now to the conclusion. And what do I make of the Roccat Kone Aimo? So right now on pricespy.co.nz, you can pick this guy up for about 135 New Zealand dollars, which is a little bit pricey, but not too bad. You can also download the Price Spy app on your phone, which I find really useful for when I go out. And then when I'm at a store or something, I can then check the prices and see what other stores have that product at. And it's just really handy to me. So that's something you should do if you're here in New Zealand or overseas. So as far as the Aimo goes, to me, I do recommend it. But it does need a bit more refining to be something that I'd say is really, really good. Right now, it's just sort of decent. That's mainly because, it looks fine. The comfort's good, although it is slippery. And the buttons, for the most part, are decent. The sensor is fantastic. That's the biggest redeeming thing about it. It has a very, very good sensor in it. But for 135 New Zealand dollars, it's just a little bit much for something that's just decent. Now, if you went out and bought this, I'm not saying you would be getting a bad gaming mouse. I'm not saying that at all. You would be very happy with it for the most part, especially if you're someone with big hands. You would be happy with it. I'm just saying that in the future, if they're going to set this price point for it, it just needs to be a bit more refined. They need to make a few adjustments here and there to, make it just that little bit better. And then it'll be 100% worth it at this price point. So for right now, I would say yes, you should consider it, but I would try, if possible, go into a store and try one out first and see how it feels to you. And if that's not possible, then maybe just wait for it to go on special or something, for that price to come down a little bit, and then it'll definitely be worth it. If you say the price came down $20 or $30, then it would be worth it for sure. But even at its current price, it will be worth it, but I would suggest, if you can, try it out in a store first. Now, I thank you guys for watching this video. Please subscribe to Tech Showdown if you haven't already and you enjoy the beanie. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.